The rain had just stopped when Maya walked into the towering glass building that bore her family's name. Most people there didn't know who she really was. To them, she was just another fresh-faced intern starting her first day in the marketing department. Her blazer was plain, her hair tied back, and she carried a worn leather notebook instead of a designer bag. That was exactly how she wanted it. Because Maya Carter wasn't here to learn the ropes. She was here to uncover the truth. Her father, Richard Carter, was a self-made billionaire, the CEO of Carter Enterprises, a company built on integrity, hard work, and innovation. But lately he had noticed something was wrong. Numbers didn't add up. Loyal employees were suddenly quitting. Clients who had trusted the company for decades were quietly walking away. Rumors began to swirl about shady deals, favoritism, and money being siphoned into private pockets. Richard had built his empire from the ground up, and he wasn't about to watch it rot from the inside. But instead of sending in lawyers or private investigators, he turned to the one person he trusted most: his own daughter. Maya had always been fiercely independent, the kind of person who could see through people's masks. She'd grown up around boardrooms and business dinners, but she had also spent time volunteering in small community offices, where she learned how much damage one selfish leader could cause. Her father knew if anyone could spot corruption, it was her. So Maya slipped into the company unnoticed, blending in with the interns. She attended meetings where mid-level managers barked orders without listening. She sat quietly as department heads took credit for ideas that weren't theirs. She noticed how some employees worked until midnight while others left early and still received glowing praise. And then there were the whispered conversations in the hallway, about certain deals that never reached the CEO's desk, about projects that were mysteriously over budget, and about one manager in particular who seemed untouchable. Every day, Maya filled her notebook with observations, names, dates, actions, and patterns. She made friends with the overlooked employees, the ones everyone else ignored. They told her stories of unfair treatment, missing pay, and intimidation tactics meant to keep them quiet. The deeper she dug, the more she realized this wasn't just a few bad apples. The corruption was organized, deliberate, and protected by people at the very top. And yet no one suspected her. No one knew the intern was quietly mapping out exactly who had been stealing from the company that fed their families. No one realized that every smug laugh and every dishonest report was being noted by the one person who could end their careers in a single heartbeat. Until the day came when Maya closed her notebook, looked around the conference room, and decided she had seen enough. That was the moment everything began to shift, the day the real storm inside Carter Enterprises was about to hit. But when she stood up and opened her mouth, what she said next made the entire room go silent. The air in the conference room felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. Maya didn't raise her voice, but there was something in her tone that made even the most arrogant manager sit a little straighter. She asked one simple question about a recent project's missing funds, calmly, almost casually. But the way she looked around the table made it clear she already knew the answer. No one spoke. Pens clicked nervously. A few exchanged glances, the kind people give when they're silently deciding who will take the fall. She let the silence hang before leaning back in her chair. "Interesting," she said softly, then gathered her notes and left without another word. The managers thought they'd dodged a bullet. They didn't realize she had just confirmed exactly who was hiding the truth. As she walked back to her small intern's desk, Maya thought about how this all started. Her father had never been the type to suspect his own people. He believed in loyalty and had given many of these managers second chances over the years. But lately he had become distant, stressed, and uncharacteristically quiet during family dinners. One night, when it was just the two of them in his study, he finally told her, "Something's wrong in the company, Maya. Can feel it. But the people I trust to find the truth might already be part of the problem." That was when she offered to go in undercover. At first, Richard hesitated. He didn't want her getting caught in office politics or putting herself in uncomfortable situations. But Maya argued that she could blend in better than any outsider, that no one would suspect a 20-something intern with a quiet demeanor. He finally agreed, but only after making her promise to report directly to him and not confront anyone until they had solid evidence. Now, weeks later, she had more than enough evidence. Pages and pages of it. She had seen forged expense reports, witnessed meetings where important details were deliberately left out of official records, and overheard conversations that sounded less like business strategy and more like personal deals. There was one name that kept coming up, Mr. Harris, the head of operations. Everyone acted like he was untouchable. He had been with the company for years, built relationships with key clients, and somehow managed to keep his name clean despite being connected to almost every shady decision Maya had uncovered. Still, she didn't have the full picture. There were gaps in the puzzle, memos that disappeared before she could see them, emails that suddenly became confidential, and financial statements that didn't match the copies her father kept in his private files. Someone was covering tracks faster than she could follow them, and she was starting to suspect there might be more than one person at the top pulling the strings. That's why she had kept quiet in the meeting. She needed them to believe she was just curious, not dangerous. The last thing she wanted was to scare them into destroying evidence before she could collect it. But as she sat at her desk that afternoon typing up notes, she noticed something unusual. An envelope slid under her keyboard, no name on it, just a single word written in bold black ink. Careful. Her heart raced as she looked around the office, but no one was watching her. She slipped the envelope into her bag, her mind spinning. Someone knew who she was, or at least what she was doing. And if they were warning her, it meant she was closer to the truth than she realized. Maya didn't open the envelope right away. She kept it in her bag through the rest of the day, pretending everything was normal. But the warning sat in her mind like a weight, making her hyper-aware of every glance in her direction. When she finally got home to her small apartment, she locked the door before sliding it out. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just a list of names, 3 managers she had already suspected and one she hadn't. The last name hit her harder than she expected. Claire Mitchell. Claire was the head of HR, known for her friendly smile and open-door policy. She had been kind to Maya since day one, even slipping her tips about navigating the company culture. If Claire was involved, it meant the rot went deeper than Maya imagined. The next day, Maya decided to quietly test Claire. She stopped by her office under the pretense of asking about internship hours, watching closely for any reaction when she casually mentioned a rumor about budget irregularities in the operations department. Claire didn't flinch, but there was a brief pause before she smiled and told Maya not to pay attention to gossip. Her tone was warm, but her eyes, they told a different story. Meanwhile, another problem was brewing. Maya had been befriending a young analyst named Jordan, one of the few employees who seemed genuinely passionate about the work. Over lunch, Jordan confided that he'd been asked to sign off on a financial report that didn't look right. He said the numbers didn't match the data he'd entered a week earlier, and when he questioned it, his manager told him to stop overthinking. Jordan was clearly uneasy, but afraid of losing his job. Maya encouraged him to keep copies of everything, but she knew that advice might put him in danger too. The days blurred into late nights as she pieced together the threads. Fraudulent invoices, projects billed twice, payments routed through fake vendors. There was even talk about a major contract being awarded to a company owned by someone's relative. Each clue pointed toward an inner circle protecting each other, making sure no one on the outside could touch them. But the warning note kept haunting her. Someone inside knew she was digging, which meant every move she made could be watched. Sometimes she'd catch a reflection in the glass of the elevator doors, a coworker lingering too long in the hallway, or a figure standing just out of sight. Once, she returned from lunch to find her desk drawer slightly open, though she was certain she'd locked it before leaving. To make things worse, her father called one evening with unsettling news. A board member had approached him with concerns about her internship, asking why she was poking her nose into things beyond her role. Richard played it off, but he warned her to be careful. It was a reminder that even outside her department, the walls were closing in. Still, Maya couldn't stop. The deeper she went, the more she realized that exposing the truth wasn't just about saving her father's company. It was about protecting the people who depended on it. And if she failed, the same people who smiled at her in the hallway could be the ones to destroy her. That night, as she was packing up to leave, she noticed a single sticky note on her desk. No words this time. Just a small black circle drawn in the center. She didn't know what it meant, but something in her gut told her this was no random doodle. It was a message. And it wasn't a friendly one. Maya stared at the black circle on the sticky note for a long time, her pulse thudding in her ears. It was such a small thing, but the more she looked at it, the more it felt like a target. She slipped it into her notebook, glancing around the now nearly empty office. The hum of the air conditioning seemed louder than usual, and every flicker of shadow in the glass walls made her uneasy. She packed her things quickly and left, but even in the elevator she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching from the corner of the lobby. The next morning, she arrived earlier than usual, determined to use the quiet hours before the office filled to dig through archived files. There was one project in particular that had been mentioned in several suspicious conversations. The Easton contract. The official reports claimed it was a major success, but the numbers told a different story. Buried in an old folder on a shared drive, Maya found what she was looking for: original budget documents that didn't match the ones submitted to the board. Millions were unaccounted for, and the trail of signatures led directly to Harris and Claire. Her hands trembled as she copied the files onto a hidden drive. Just as she was finishing, she heard footsteps in the hallway. She quickly minimized the screen, pretending to be checking her email. Claire appeared in the doorway, smiling in that warm, polished way she always did. "Early start today?" she asked, leaning against the frame. Maya nodded, forcing a casual tone, but her mind was racing. If Claire suspected her, this was dangerous territory. Later that day, Jordan found her in the break room, his face pale. "Someone's been in my computer," he whispered. "The files I told you about are gone." He was shaking, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to walk in. Maya didn't need to ask who might be responsible. She knew whoever had taken his files was also the one leaving her warnings. The circle, the envelope, the drawer, it was all connected. By now, the atmosphere in the office had changed. Conversations stopped when she entered the room. A few people avoided eye contact altogether, while others seemed overly friendly, as if trying to read her intentions. She was close to something big and they could sense it. Her father's calls became more urgent. He hinted that there were moves being made at the executive level, board members aligning in ways that didn't make sense. "Be ready for anything, Maya," he said during their last conversation. "I think they know more than they're letting on." His voice carried a tension she hadn't heard before, and it only fueled her determination. That evening, she stayed late again, determined to cross-check every piece of data before she took her next step. But when she returned to her desk from the printer, her notebook was gone. In its place was another sticky note, this one with 2 black circles side by side. Her breath caught as she realized the meaning. The first circle had been a warning. The second felt like a countdown. And somewhere in the silent, shadowed corners of the building, someone was waiting for her to make her next move. Someone who knew exactly how close she was to exposing them all. Maya froze, the 2 black circles burning into her mind. A countdown to what? She scanned the empty office, every shadow suddenly feeling like it was holding its breath. She slipped the note into her bag, grabbed her laptop, and decided to leave for the night. But as she passed the conference room, she noticed the door was slightly ajar and the light inside was on. Something in her gut told her to look. She pushed the door open just enough to see Harris sitting at the head of the table, speaking in a low voice to 2 men she didn't recognize. They weren't wearing employee badges, and their tailored suits didn't match the relaxed corporate style of Carter Enterprises. One of them slid a thick envelope across the table, and Harris smirked before tucking it into his briefcase. Maya's stomach twisted. She quickly stepped back before she could be seen, her heart racing as she hurried toward the elevator. The next morning things got worse. Richard called her early, his tone sharper than usual. "Maya, we've been hacked. Sensitive files are missing from the main server. Financial records, contracts, even board meeting minutes. The IT team says it happened from inside the building." Her grip tightened on the phone. She didn't need to guess who might have done it. The timing was too perfect, too precise. At lunch, Jordan pulled her aside again, but this time his voice was shaking for a different reason. "I think I'm being followed," he said, glancing toward the glass windows where the reflection of a man in a dark coat lingered just beyond the lobby doors. "He's been outside every day this week." Jordan's fear only confirmed what Maya already knew. The people protecting this corruption were willing to go far beyond office games. That night, Maya stayed late again, determined to recover whatever files she could before they disappeared forever. While digging through a restricted folder, she stumbled upon something she hadn't been looking for: a confidential HR report marked "Executive Only." Inside was an internal investigation summary about her. It listed her internship activities, the people she'd spoken to, the meetings she'd attended. At the bottom, in bold letters, it read, "Suspected of internal espionage. Monitor closely." Her blood ran cold. They didn't just suspect her. They were building a case to remove her entirely. And with her father distracted by the company's sudden security crisis, they might succeed before she could hand him the evidence. Just as she was about to log off, a pop-up appeared on her screen. It wasn't from the company network. It was a direct message from an unknown sender. The text was short, almost taunting. "You're looking in the wrong place." Below it was an attachment labeled easternfiles.zip. She hesitated for only a moment before downloading it, but before the progress bar could complete, her screen went black. The office lights flickered, and the entire floor went dark. Somewhere in the silence, she heard the faint click of a door closing. She wasn't alone. And whoever else was there had just made their move. Maya's breath caught in the pitch-black silence. The faint hum of the building's systems was gone, replaced only by the sound of her own heartbeat. She reached for her phone, using its light to scan the office. At the far end of the hallway, a figure moved, slow, deliberate steps heading straight toward her. "Maya," a low voice called. It was Harris. He stepped into the weak beam of her phone light. His face calm, almost smug. "You've been busy," he said, setting his briefcase on a desk. "Too busy." He reached inside and pulled out a folder, her notebook. "You've been keeping quite the diary." Maya forced herself to stand her ground. "You've been stealing from the company my father built. You think you can hide behind fake contracts and threats." Her voice didn't waver, even though her fingers were trembling. Harris chuckled. "Your father won't believe you. Not after what I've prepared." He tossed a stack of printed emails onto the desk, doctored messages that made it look like she had been feeding confidential company data to a competitor. "By tomorrow morning you'll be gone and I'll still be here." Before Maya could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from the emergency stairwell. The door swung open and her father, Richard Carter, strode in with 2 board members and the company's head of security. Harris's smirk faltered. "Maya called me 30 minutes ago," Richard said evenly, though his eyes burned. "She told me everything, and unlike you, she has proof that can't be erased." He held up a flash drive. "Jordan's been backing up the real files off-site for weeks." Harris's composure cracked. "You can't." "I already have," Richard cut in. "We've traced the stolen funds, the fake vendors, and every contract you've manipulated. Claire's confessed. It's over." Security stepped forward to escort Harris out, but before he left, he leaned toward Maya and whispered, "You still have no idea who started this." The words sent a chill down her spine. In the days that followed, the corrupt managers were removed, contracts were audited, and trust slowly began to rebuild. Maya's role in exposing the fraud became an open secret in the company, though most only knew part of the story. She returned to her life, relieved but still unsettled by Harris's last words. Then, one evening as she sorted through the files she'd kept for her own records, she noticed something she hadn't before: An early memo about the Easton contract. The sender wasn't Harris, Claire, or anyone she'd suspected. It was signed by a board member. One her father had always considered a close friend. Her phone buzzed with a new message. No name, just the same black circle symbol. Beneath it, a short line of text. "You took down the wrong man." Maya stared at the screen, realizing the game wasn't over. It had only just changed players. Maya sat frozen, staring at the message. The weight of those 5 words pressed down harder than all the chaos she had faced so far. She thought she had ended it, that taking Harris down would close the chapter, but now the edges of the truth felt even more jagged. Board member. Someone her father trusted. That meant the corruption wasn't just inside management. It had roots in the very leadership steering Carter Enterprises. She considered telling her father immediately, but for the first time she hesitated. The last few weeks had nearly broken him. He'd lost friends, endured public scrutiny, and faced betrayal from people he'd believed in for years. Dropping this new truth in his lap now would tear open wounds that hadn't even begun to heal. So she decided to wait, to watch quietly the way she had in the beginning. In the meantime, the company was undergoing a massive cleanup. With the corrupt managers gone, departments started functioning with a new sense of energy. Jordan was promoted to lead analyst, a decision that sent a wave of optimism through the ranks. Employees who had been afraid to speak up began sharing ideas again, and for the first time in months, Richard Carter walked through the halls with a smile that wasn't forced. Maya stayed in her intern role a little longer, blending in and observing as the company shifted. Every so often she'd see that same board member, Mr. Lambert, walking through the building. He was polite, even friendly, but there was a sharpness in his gaze she couldn't ignore. She started keeping a file on him, quietly collecting small inconsistencies in his communications and decisions. Nothing solid yet, but enough to keep her instincts sharp. Claire, despite her confession, managed to negotiate her exit quietly. The official statement said she left for personal reasons, but Maya knew the truth. Even so, she wondered if Claire's cooperation had been genuine or just self-preservation. It was one more loose thread in a story that refused to fully tie itself together. The messages with the black circle symbol stopped, but she never deleted them. They were proof that someone had been watching her from the shadows, and might still be. Every time she saw the symbol in her files, it reminded her that the work wasn't truly over. On her last day as an intern, her father invited her into his office. "You've done more for this company than most executives will in their careers," he said, pride in his voice. "You have a sharp mind, Maya. Whatever you choose next, you'll make an impact." She smiled, but part of her knew she wasn't done with Carter Enterprises just yet. As she left the building that afternoon, she glanced back at the tall glass tower. To most, it looked like a place of opportunity and success. But Maya had seen the cracks beneath the shine. She knew power could be used to build or destroy, and the difference often came down to who was quietly pulling the strings. The fight for her father's company wasn't over. But for now, she walked away with one truth burned into her mind. Sometimes the real battle isn't won in the boardroom, but in the moments no one sees. When you choose to keep digging, even after everyone else thinks the story is finished.